Hell is known for a lot of things: pain, suffering, daddy issues. Some say the latter hurts the most. Personally, I think lava is a bit more damaging, but you do you. In the world of Helluva Boss, nearly every character has some sort of familiar issue that affects them to this day. Everyone except for Millie, her parents seem fine, I guess. So what about the many other members of this ensemble cast? Let's dive into the 9 circles of hell and look at how these parental figures shape the demons we know today. And despite my grievances for the show, I still support it. As behind me, I have this picture of Moxie, signed by Richard Horvitz, the voice actor, and Jill Harris, right here, the voice actor for Charlie in the Hazbin Hotel pilot.
Hi, I'm Jill Harris, and you should subscribe to Daft Peanut.
Hello, I'm Daft Peanut, and today we're gonna look at Helluva Boss's daddy issues, what they are, and how they're portrayed. While the show has some great moments, be it in animation, singing, or even exploring emotions, some of the scenes aren't executed so greatly. But we'll get into that later in the video. So we'll start with the main furry bait herself, Luna. Luna is one of the more popular characters for obvious reasons. She is a tall wolf, and is very mean. A lot of people are into that kind of stuff.
You know, the kind of freaks up there who drool all over you.
In the 9 episodes that were released, we see a lot of her present and not so much of her past. She was an orphan at the Hellhound Adoption Foundation, shown in the episode Seen Stars. Blitz adopted her around a month before she turned 18, and he's very proud of taking care of her, noting he has a selfie of her adoption process, and even has some papers framed outside of her room in his apartment. That's pretty much it for her past, apart from the fact she barely has friends. Probably because she keeps doing mean things, like making fun of Moxie's weight.
Did you just fax me an ad for weight loss?
No.
What? Why would anyone send me this?
Come on. You know why.
A constant thing that happens in the series for some reason, but being abandoned probably gave her a lot of trust issues I'm sure will be explored in a future episode. Blitz, the adopted father of Luna, comes from the circus as a demon clown, so if you're scared of clowns, like a wimp, best to keep looking at your drawing tablet for the section. Blitzo's dad's name was Cash Buxo, though character designer Cowie's Draws originally named him Goatso, as at the time, the series creator vivzipop had not named him. In terms of bad dad stuff, he forced Blitz to rob the Goetta family, trading him for $5 and a slim fit condom by the Goetta family's dad, Paimon. This happened because Stolas, Paimon's son, was excited seeing Blitzo perform. However, what seemed like true friendship had ulterior motives, robbing the family blind. It is to mention Blitz originally pronounced the O in his name until he resigned from the circus. Though in Shark Robot some credits, the spelling does change. However, Blitz does go to therapy, which means A, therapy exists in hell, B, it probably has something to do with horses, cause boy does he like having sex in horse costumes. C, his mom's dead or gone, noting that she used to wear a red skull charm that he now wears. Again, something I'm sure would be explained in a future episode. Moxie, the character that Google Docs keeps misspelling whenever I type his name, is the son of Crimson, no last name. It's not me not remembering his name, like that's his actual, that's his actual last name. It's no last name. In Season 2, Episode 3, we have a whole episode mostly dedicated to the relationship. Being part of the Mafia and the Greed Ring, needless to say, it does a lot of damage to your family values. You see in this world's lore, the 9 circles of hell are literal, not what Dante wrote about in his Bible non-canon. It was called Divine Comedy, which isn't aptly named. That shit was not funny. Crimson is the head of the Mafia, and expects a lot out of his son, teaching him how to mueta and not be weak. Moxie's mom, she was never given a name, so what is referred to her as Moxie's mom is dead because Crimson moited her when she left him. Needless to say, Moxie appreciates his mother's side of the family a bit more than his father's, even wearing the bow she used to wear. In this episode, Moxie was to marry Chaz, an ex of both Moxie and Millie, for the sole reason he has a lot of money and his dad wants it. But the last time Moxie saw of him was at a botched robbery where he later met Blitz in prison, and they quickly became friends, as Moxie saw how much Blitz cared about his daughter, proving in this instance that perhaps not all dads are bad.
I need to get out to my daughter. The babysitter will kill me if I don't get back soon. You like this?
Stolas is a big bird, often referred to as an owl because he is one. Stolas was born along with many siblings, so many that his dad forgot his name because he's had sex with many demon animals. Oh yeah, some of the demons in hell were just like animal things. Chaz is a shark, or was a shark. In Season 2, Episode 1, The Circus, Stolas becomes of age, and now has to learn his responsibilities doing family business stuff, and is arranged to be married to Stella. Unbeknownst to him at the time, he likes men. He would sort of figure this out when he saw Blitzo performing at the circus and wanting to be his friend. He would later actually find out many years later when they had sex. Now that's character development. And this matters a bit, considering Stolas is already married. Stolas' dad isn't the worst in the series, at least from what we've seen. I'm sure he's murdered a bunch of people, but you can do that and still be a good dad. However, Stolas was a bad dad to his daughter. Octavia is a 17-year-old bird person offspring of Stella and Stolas, and is affected by their constant arguments. With the arranged marriage and Stolas not being attracted to his wife, a lot of mental damage was done to this kid. Octavia has a constant fear that she'll be abandoned by her dad, even having a nightmare that would happen. In Season 2, Episode 2, Seen Stars, Octavia and Stolas start to see some space stuff when he suddenly gets busy. She then goes on an epic quest in a place worse than hell to find the stars, Los Angeles. They eventually work out their issues, having heartfelt talk.
I just wanted to see the stars you promised.
The stars? Azathoth's tears. Oh no, oh my dear sweet Fia, I am so...
I know, Dad, it's okay. You're here now.
Even for the mistakes of his dad, Stolas seems to be trying his best for his daughter. I suppose it's a bit easier for him, considering he only has one kid, as his dad seemingly has a whole Brady Bunch or more to worry about. Whew, that's a lot of animals in hell. For Millie, there's nothing. Literally. Vivian specifically said she won't have a sad backstory, so no daddy issues there, nor mommy issues. There's just no issues. I should probably just start with that. So nearly all these characters experienced tragedy in their lives that shaped who they are today. For Luna, she became more closed off, often seen lashing out at others and just being a dick to everyone. Blitz became more assertive and showboaty. Despite leaving the circus, he still likes to have pizzazz in what he does. Along with that, he became more conniving, a word I always assume has a K, but apparently doesn't. A case for that would be trying to steal the Grimoire to do earthly killings, which is the same scene where Stolas thinks they're having sex, when instead it's just Blitz trying to tie him up, and then they have sex. Moxie became a lot more submissive, often listening to others for what he should do, and even has trouble killing people, especially if they have families. Stolas became repressed, from his sexuality to even just being himself. Having to deal with royal duties really weighed down on him. Octavia became disassociated and cynical due to her parents constantly fighting. For Millie, she turned out nice yet ruthless when murdering. This could be because she was born in the Wrath Ring. One might ask why I'm going into detail about behind the scenes stuff for the show. It's mainly because an episode releases every 4 months. Storyline progression perception is altered based on how the show's released, be it all at the same time, once a week, or once every few months. Cases like Steven Universe show how this can affect audience perception, such as their Steven bombs. The episodes were written a certain way in a certain order, so when they're released in the wrong order or wrong chunks, it can make the viewer feel uneasy, either in a case of why is there so many filler episodes, or why is the pacing so terrible. I remember seeing back when the show aired, people talk about this concept, but when people started to watch the show without breaks, people started to get a new appreciation for it. So when discussing characters and ensemble casts released on a schedule like Helluva Boss, as infuriating as it is that we have to wait so long, we kinda have to. I'm sure my feelings would change when the full season releases, because waiting X amount of time and just watching the new one kinda brings you out of the lore, at least for me. Then all the summary talk about the things occurring, I want to talk a bit more about how some of the scenes are portrayed, and we'll be mainly focusing on the first 3 episodes of the second season, as those fill in a lot of gaps in the story when it comes to familiar issues. Now portrayed is a heavy term that's breaking my back, so please let me clarify a few things before I go forward. In animation, there's a lot of hands that make this pizza pie Mamma Mia. If we take the credits of season 2 episode 3, we have created and directed by Vivian Medrano, written by Adam Nalen, with story by Vivian Medrano, Brandon Rogers, and Adam Nalen. Now that's just writing. There's also the 4 storyboard artists, as well as the board lead and the many animators and VFX artists on it. In what I will discuss, there really isn't one person to be like, they did a bad job. It's a group effort to make this thing. Each person in the process has their own interpretation of Vivian's vision, as she directs the team in their respective jobs. Okay, she directs other people to direct those people. She's not literally speaking to every person, obviously. She's very busy. Basically what I'm saying is, if you dumb down the argument to Vivian can't write, then you probably don't know much about how animation works. It's like the people talking about Velma blaming Mindy Kaling's writing, though she's only credited as Velma, an executive producer, though her colleagues were the ones writing the show. So, I don't know. Alright, let's go over the scenes in Helluva Boss to see what I mean. When Helluva Boss makes something fantastic, it really stands out. Case in point for season 2 episode 1's ending. Stolas has a longing for something more. This is paired with thinking about Blitz, as they had a recent fight.
Frail, you raise your voice, you have no choice inside your gilded jail.
The lyrics and the visuals pair well together, but what really sells this is that the scene allows itself to be sad. What do I mean by this? Well, if we take Multiverse of Madness, a Marvel film, at the very end, Doctor Strange has a third eye, and it's very scary. But then we cut to the after credits, and the third eye is kind of whatever. I guess he got over it. I certify how well a scene captures the mood with how the next scene follows it up. Does it undercut the sadness by getting too fast to the jokes? Does it further push the feelings we just resonated with? Does it take time before getting to the new dialogue? After the song number, Stella is seen arguing with Stolas, and he confirms they're getting a divorce. There really aren't any jokes as the credits roll, and we have a lingering sadness. This was a very nice scene. Well, both of them. Both of them were very nice scenes. For Season 2, Episode 2, we have something similar in the ending, as we have Luna and Octavia talk about their feelings and daddy issues. They eventually reunite with their respective parental figures and have a nice heartfelt talk. Well, except for Luna, she kicks the fuck out of Blitz, as well as smacking him with the book in a manner that's heartfelt. I reckon in a future episode, they'll have a tender moment, like an actual tender moment. But for now, it seems like a weird yet short tone shift in them reuniting, though of course it's not out of character. The ending shot is wonderful, as it shows the 4 characters watching the fireworks in the sky. Previously they came out of the building Blitz and Stolas learned moments ago, pretending to be an actor. While there were some light jokes here and there, I think this shot is ruined in editing, as rather than fading to the credits, they cut back to Millie and Moxie, as their plot line needs to be finished up, and I guess now's the time to finalize it. For this scenario, I think having them appear after the credits would be more suitable, as it lets the audience appreciate the heartfelt moment rather than quickly rushing back to tell another joke. But that was still a better balance of heartstring tugging animation and light humor. I'm fine with it, as it doesn't detract from the overall feeling. But in the next episode, the tone would wildly shift to the point where I felt any concept of thread is diminished by the need to be funny, haha, woohoo, seriously. For Season 2, Episode 3, we're introduced to Crimson, the bigoted murderous dad of Moxie. The entire episode is centered around this family dynamic, so much so that Luna stays in the office and has no lines. None. Now, when I say that Moxie's dad murdered his wife, beats Moxie up, and hates the fact that he likes men, you'd expect that the episode would put more weight into these interactions. The issue is when exploring these aspects, the show feels the need to put a joke where fear and sadness should remain. When Crimson says that Moxie has to marry Chaz, it's a bit heart-wrenching, considering Moxie is married and his dad is trying to force him to divorce and remarry for the sake of his needs. This is undercut as when they get to his bigotry, it's played off as a joke. To make the house more Moxie's liking, Crimson set up a bunch of dildos that are ever present throughout the rest of the episode. When Crimson again tries to be menacing, we have the background of dildos as it fades to the flashback of better memories. We cut back to the present, and Crimson says,
Now get to bed, Moxie. You have a big day tomorrow. Yes, sir. Oh, and Mox, if you ever talk back to me again, you and that pretty little thing you brought here are going home in boxes. Capiche? Yes, sir.
Then we cut back to his dad loaning the chair of dildos everywhere underneath a banner that says congrats gay. Moxie is forced to be separated from his wife, and Chaz immediately tries to fuck him. I'm fine with the sex and murder jokes in this cartoon, as it's to be expected. It would be like acting surprised when Family Guy has a cutaway. Who would ever guess that? I suppose I can compare their death scene to how this episode handles the tone. When Brian Griffin dies, it's a sad moment, as we see him just get run over. This quickly shifts when a squirrel runs up and says,
That guy sucked.
That's what it felt like when watching this episode. Moxie has this terrible dad that we found out murdered his mom, and there are just colorful dildos in the background that just brings me out of it. It's like we were so close, and yet so far. Though in saying this, my disappointment in how the show treats these scenes is tantamount to my understanding of how cartoons work, and that sort of lessens my disappointment in how this occurred. There is a hard balance in shows like this, as comparing it to something on television, there are a lot of unseen factors. Even if we go with the lowest amount of episodes for a standard streaming season, about 10 episodes on Netflix, Helluva Boss still clocks around 7 per season. Okay, the last episode of season 1 has yet to release due to internal issues, but we're just gonna work with that number, okay? Is that okay? So in these 7 episodes, each one has an arc, and each season has an arc overall. There's a finite amount of time to tell these stories, and having an ensemble cast that all have to be doing things in each episode, it becomes a bit hard to write for. Adam Nalen, one of the writers for Helluva Boss, acknowledged this by quote tweeting a post regarding how to balance the episode's characters and stories. The issue that you run into with these sorts of productions, or really any, is that a lot of these criticisms fall on deaf ears. With a finished product and many hands working on it, what do you really want them to do except try a bit better next time? To critique a piece without understanding the efforts that go in means you're shouting at a void you assume will listen. Going back to when I mentioned that a lot of people work on the production, my cat just sneezed. He's part of the production too. It's seldom the fault of one person. Much like my video on Hard Guardian Spice, a lot can happen behind production that cause issues or mistakes. Though the issues you see on screen are the ones that were left in because the other ones were already fixed. Robert Bresson, a French filmmaker, was once quoted as saying that a film is born 3 times. First in the writing of the script, once again in the shooting, and finally in the editing. Now of course these demons are cartoons and are not real, much to the dismay of Luna fans. So let's swap out the middle part for, once again, a drawing. In creating art, you have to let a lot of things go in order for it to be finished. The script that Adam, Vivian, and everyone else wrote isn't necessarily a blueprint for how to create the vision, rather a strict yet loose-ish guide to pull from. The storyboard artists can read a line like, Moxie is sitting in a chair being sad, and interpret that in a way where the writer didn't envision. This also goes for the voice actors who may flub a line or read a different way. Perhaps they couldn't read a word properly, or the director wants to try something new. Or even how the compositors change the literal mood, i.e. color, of the scene, and changes what was created before then. Another case of this would be of Jenna Ortega of Wednesday. It was noted by her that the scripts made no sense for her character, and she just changed things without consulting the writers. Quote, I don't think I've ever had to put my foot down more on a set in a way that I had to do on Wednesday. Everything that Wednesday does, everything I had to play, did not make sense for a character at all. There were times on that set where I even became almost unprofessional in a sense, where I just started changing lines. The script supervisor thought I was going with something, and I had to sit down with the writers and they'd be like, wait, what happened to the scene? And I'd have to go and explain why I couldn't do certain things. End quotes. This is the note, of course, that the actor did turn down the part many times, mainly for the fear of preventing her from doing other projects. The show would later get renewed for a second season, but this time she'd be an executive producer. Hopefully she gets on the writing team as well, because changing things without telling people the day before filming is a dick move, no matter how well the material turned out. And the material did turn out well. In these instances, we have revisions and many more hands that make the animation less of a vivzipop idea, but rather a group effort led by vivzipop. Every little piece adds to what makes the scene good or bad. When you start to get further into the animation pipeline, it becomes an expensive process to make revisions, and you do start to see mistakes or pacing issues in writing that could have not been seen before. You can only really do so much in editing. So when I mention when scenes are done well or not done so well, it's rather not a critique over one person, but rather on how the show itself got there. To see where we ended up is a bit more interesting to me than to say, boo this one writer because they wrote a bad thing, as chances are they probably would have written a different way if they had that sort of vision of how it would turn out later on. Discussing lore is something I found a bit more fascinating for projects like this. This is something that can be interesting and talked about more thoughtfully than how it's literally portrayed in the art. Okay, that's a weird phrase, but let me explain. There will always be limitations in how media is created due to factors like time, money, and corporate interests. When I mentioned Mindy Kaling not writing for the show, maybe she did have a heavy-hand production for executive status. Who knows? But that's something keeping in mind when you talk about the overall piece and try to critique it. So when something comes close to greatness, it's a miracle in the production world. If the stars align, we got something that many can say is a job well done. That's pretty commendable. Noting, of course, this is still an indie production that produces episodes every 4 months. We're not really used to waiting this long for a new episode, not counting Steven Universe or The Owl House, of course. And it's always infinitely easier to rewrite or redraw a scene than to make one from scratch. Believe me. I know. So are critiques in the show invalid? Of course not, as every piece of media has some little thing wrong with it. Just don't go crying to the people who made it, as it's seldom heard that repeating the same thing to the same people really changes their mind on a finalized product they already let go a year before, when right now they already started working on the storyboards for the next episode. And saying all of that, this video is about daddy issues in Helluva Boss and how they're portrayed. For the most part, ignoring pacing issues and not going too into people's backstories, I think the show covers it as well as it can. There are many aspects of familiar sadness that can occur, and the ones that portrayed thus far do give the characters a lot more depth than I initially expected for a show about sex and murder jokes. I just hope that eventually Millie gets her own episode, because honestly I forget that she's a separate character from Moxie. Like, they're usually just seen in a pair doing things, you know. But that's all the time I have for now. Please like and subscribe, follow me on Twitter, support me on Patreon. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my second channel for my cartoons. Whee! Until next time, keep on drawing, and please, don't forget to have fantastic